Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day one, for real this time, of London Invite 2024. The weather overhead looks, we'll call it changeable in true British fashion. There is some heavy grey cloud, but the sun is bursting through, and we are kicking things off with women's division action for you this morning. We have an all-UK affair with Bristol taking on SYC. Benjamin Rees with you pretty much all day today. Delighted to be joined by a revolving cast of commentators, and alongside me in the colour commentary seat this morning is Josh Briggs. Morning.
Good morning, Benji.
How are you feeling? Excited?
I'm very excited. I'm delighted to be here. Looking forward to this game. Looking forward to commentating with you.
You've
commentated my games many times, but this is a pleasure to be able to sit here with you in the booth.
It's very different from the other side of things. Hopefully, it doesn't catch you too off guard. Bristol and SYC, we were doing a little bit of digging before the game, and it's not the first time these two sides have matched up this season.
No, we saw that they met in the Spring Invite in London early this year, and it was a 12-7 win for Bristol. Further down the line, they both played at Tom's.
They did indeed.
Bristol having a very strong finish there, missing their GB ladies and still coming 4th, and SYC coming 14th. So it'd be interesting to see what develops in this sort of midsummer matchup between the two.
Yeah, both of these sides, obviously, you want to win every game because that's just how you approach things. But the goal is not necessarily London Invite. It's about utilising the season as a whole and then pushing towards potentially EUCF at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of weeks from now will be another big marking point in these teams' calendars.
So SYC are starting out on offence here. Scott initiates up line.
Ooh, wow.
That is a heater early doors. I like the aggression of the shot, even if it was probably zipped a little bit too much. And with the windy conditions we had last night, certainly I think a lot more favourable for throwers in this morning.
Definitely. I would say as a player who's going to be playing later, these are sort of ideal conditions. There's a faint breeze, but it's really not going to impact anyone's discs.
No, in the little scrimmages and showcases we had yesterday evening, you could see what effect the wind was having on things, pushing everything up that it possibly could. Durban on the turn takes the reset to start. SYC O-line doing a good job of clamping down, and Bristol struggling to find space. The shot's going on a high stall, tracked beyond the halfway line and brought down by Rodriguez. Now Payne going to shoot it once more. It worked the first time, so why not the second?
Oh, wow.
Slightly awkward catch, but Fliss man tracked it well, and with the defender in her face, brings it down. Bristol with an early break to take a 1-0 lead.
It's something that I thought was interesting. Was watching both of the teams warm up for the last sort of 15-20 minutes. And though there were plenty of, let's say, mid-range lead passes in both teams' warm-ups, and they cycled through a fair amount of undercuts and breakthrough cuts as well, there was nothing that really resembled the sort of instantaneous booming shot that we saw from the SYC O-line there. So I'm wondering whether that was a deliberate strategy to try and tell Bristol right off the bat that we're not afraid of sending someone deep and sticking it to them.
I mean, I quite like going for aggressive options early, even if they don't necessarily work out, because you let the opposition know, as you mentioned, that we're looking for these big shots. It always puts that threat in their mind, and it does open up more space for you underneath. This ball is going to take the edge, and I think it is going to land fairly out of bounds in the end. Melville will get a chance to jog it to the break mark. Golding into the centre, and Galani now resets off and then takes a spot in the handling position. Spanton working with Wilson as SYC make it beyond halfway, and we know that Wilson is a shooter. We got a target like Garnier. Why wouldn't you be? SYC, clean hold there. They're on the board for 1 each.
Excellent throw. I was really impressed with the way SYC kept the space in front of the disc clear. The horizontal offense has come out 2 points in a row now, and the cutters in that point were much more able to get into flow, clear the space in front of the disc, and let each other cycle in. Worked up to halfway nicely with the breeze arriving, and Caitlin took a wonderful shot to Roop.
And that has been Caitlin Wilson's game for many years now. You know, there is that no fear style of ultimate. If the shots are on, even if they're sometimes a little bit spurious, she'll take them, and she, will always back herself to nail them.
Another thing I noticed during the warm-ups was right before the game started, it was interesting that Bristol went into a defensive-heavy sort of set. A lot of their players were playing sort of one-on-one match defense, repping their footwork and body positioning, whereas SYC opted for a few more throwing-based drills. So I wonder if this is going to be a battle of a really strong D-line against a really strong cutting and throwing O-line.
We'll see how Bristol's O-line looks. It's first opportunity out there on the field. Wedge will be an engine for Bristol downfield. That one's going to float though, and it's going to fall to the turf. Bristol's O-line maybe just fine-tuning and tweaking a couple of things in its first possession as well. Scott picks up. Trying the raking throw all the way across the field. Hocking tracked it superbly. Takes the instant shot into the end zone. And ruthless from Bristol. Did not let SYC get away with that one.
Interesting that we have only seen horizontal so far from both O-lines and D-lines. The D-lines have looked slightly less sure about getting the disc moving early off the turn. Both times we've had turns, they've come in those far corners, and we've had to have bailout throws. It worked obviously for Bristol's D-line earlier, but I'm wondering if already they want to think about maybe setting up slightly more positively on their resets, or throwing sideways on stall 0, walking the disc in, and rather than looking to your cutters, especially if you're picking it up in the corner and playing sort of in a parallel direction, play straight into the middle of the pitch and then decide what to do with it going forwards.
Once SYC had that strike cut come through down the line, normally you would expect maybe a player downfield or a third handler to come in and fill in that position there to provide that reset space, but there was not one there, and it meant that the ambitious inside shot had to go across the field again. Not a bad choice of shot necessarily, but they made it more difficult than it needed to be. Garnier looking downfield. Squeezes the throw to Melville. A few yards away from Pader. Rolls the break around back to Garnier. Shooting the inside through, but the window closed in a flash.
I think she had the around there. On beat 1, after her catch, she stepped out nicely to throw it and opted for the inside. I think her around, if floated out nicely, again, very little wind, would have been a great option.
Yeah, the inside has to go almost immediately, because otherwise that window closes so quickly. Durban into space. Mudd to Payne, and this Bristol D-line has got a nice bit of rhythm about its offense.
Certainly, they're playing with excellent tempo.
And Rodriguez takes the shot down the sideline. Couple of receivers there in the end. Hannah Mudd puts a name on it, and Bristol break once more, establishing themselves with a good early advantage, 3-1. That didn't look like a D-line offense.
No, it looked very smooth. I wonder if we're, 3-4 points into the game now, everyone is fully settled, and Bristol's D-line there looked like they were basically just playing open catch and move, the disc moved much more snappily around the back with Durban and her other handlers. And we did move the disc up to that far sideline quite quickly with that quick movement. And I wouldn't say the shot was the best option, especially the way the disc was moving via Bristol players using their legs. But nonetheless, it was opened up by the fact that no SYC defender was able to get within reach.
It feels like every time I've worked out what the weather's doing, it changes.
This is true. Yeah, it's changed again.
So there is now a bit of a breeze coming from slightly behind the camera as you look at it, coming from left to right as well.
Yeah, let's call it a thrower's breeze. I'd still be very happy with this if I was playing, but it's going to affect those higher, longer discs more than we've seen in the last few minutes.
Yeah, not going to completely alter the strategy necessarily, but just
very good pull.
Change the thinking slightly, pens them in on that coffin corner that we've been talking about. SYC trying to get it moving quickly. Both sides have thrived when they've had the quicker disc movement. As a rescue catch made there. Childs into the centre. Bristol beginning to clamp things down a little bit, but SYC trying to pick up the pace once more.
Yeah, excellent defense from Laurel, I think, on the number 17 there.
I believe that's going to be an accepted strip. Piper lays out to save it. Back in the women's division this year. There's the deep shot.
Excellent.
They're calling Piper's number, and Piper is shredding them. Once the little force-off man. Are they able to find their way over? Not quite yet. Back to Payne, running some textbook dump swing. LaRocque in the front of the end zone. Bristol are on the warpath. They've been clean and efficient.
Really excellent point from Laurel there. When she was on defense, once SYC had moved the disc to sort of half field, she managed to shut down an open side reset cut, flash in the lane, then recover back to her matchup in a space of about half a stall, totally snuffing out an easy early stall option, and then went a couple early passes under with a good layout grab. It went deep on the break side for a lovely break flick huck, and then distributed back off, I think, to the player, the teammate that threw the huck, which is always fun as someone that hucks it when you go receive the disc back from the person you threw it to. So stunning point all round, very good all round play.
Yeah, SYC choosing to take the timeout here. A timeout call that makes sense to me because the early game has got away from them a little bit here. We'll see what they can cook up. Bristol leading SYC 4-1 here. First action of the weekend at the London Invite.
Always on the move? You can keep up to date with ULTI.TV on all of our social media channels. Like, follow, subscribe, share us with a friend, or send us a message just to say hey. Thank you for supporting us in our mission to grow Ultimate everywhere.
We are a group of Ultimate players, coaches and video enthusiasts. We've worked with the major federations and the greatest events.
We're on a mission to make Ultimate huge. We want our videos and live streams to be free to watch.
We want to make stories that not only reach you,
but also reach people outside the Ultimate community.
Like and subscribe, ULTI.TV, the best in the world.
Become a member and
fund
our
our work to cover more events in the future and to bring more stories and live coverage to the eyes of the Ultimate world and beyond.
Bristol asserting themselves early doors in this one. 4-1 advantage over SYC. Penji Rees and Josh Briggs alongside me in the booth.
Still horizontal.
And that is a beautiful throw from Wilson. Couldn't quite track it towards the far side, but utilising the inside-out shape there to try and lead it away from the defender, but just wouldn't quite hang up long enough.
No, I do think the the throw showed a little bit too much of the underside of the disc to this breeze, and excellent grab, and just carried it away from the receiver slightly too much.
Yeah, it looked like a tough catch to make, but if it's anywhere within Wedge's catch radius, 9 times out of 10 she tends to come up with it. And they're calling Wedge's number again down that far sideline.
Excellent.
And SYC just had no answer.
No, the Bristol D-line looks very much ready to play. I think those one-on-one defensive drills in the 2 minutes before the game were a demonstration of their confidence and their sort of the way they're going to attack this game.
And Bristol had been one of their sides, they were kind of there or thereabouts at the thick end of things come UK Nationals, but it was a question of when they were going to make the breakthrough for the first time, which they did probably a little over 5 years ago now, breaking up the Iceni dominance to take home their crown, and then again trying to take the next step. How are we translating this into success on the international and European stage? And again, they had a big breakthrough a couple of years ago at EUCF when they took home a bronze medal.
Yeah. Yeah, they're looking great. They look like they are tuning up nicely. Very well timed for nationals in a couple of weekends. They should be feeling confident. The strength of their D-line is evident. When we see their O-line again, it'll be interesting because they haven't been on the pitch in a while. That's always tough. So hopefully we can see a hold from SYC here, and then we can have the SYC D-line test the Bristol O-line.
It's weird having UK Nationals kind of right in the heart of the summer, because we're thinking about it usually it being at kind of the August bank holiday weekend, because it's doubled up as the EUCF qualifier as well. But with the change of system, not seeing that this year, I'm pretty sure that one was grassed.
Yeah, me too. I'm pretty confident that I'd hit the ground before the catch. Yeah.
Yeah, the SYC sidelines just giving the advice. So another opportunity. And generally, Bristol have been pretty cutting once they've got the disc in hand.
Impressively clean, this D-line, actually. That first point where they broke with 2 sort of leading passes in this direction.
That one's a floater. It's going to be tipped and tipped away. NS got enough of a piece to prevent it going to hand.
Okay, let's see what SYC O-line's red zone offense is like.
Sort of position they've had the disc as anywhere near as much as they would like. Booth picks up. Double covered the cut coming off the front. I thought there was a break opportunity available, but instead they're going wide. Ooh. And it sneaks its way through the grasp of Blackburn.
It has started raining now.
Man, waiting for receivers to come open beyond. But Bristol happy to swing until they can get their offense in rhythm. Piper just across the halfway line. It's Bristol happy to do the workman-like jobs around the back, and Piper frustrated with herself as that throw grasses.
Understandably so. I think it was the correct option. She's doing a great job of moving the disc to the first pair of free hands on stall 0 to 2. That one possibly rushed ever so slightly, maybe not the sturdiest of pivots to enable her to release the throw smoothly.
Much better reset pattern there, sorry to cut you off.
No problem.
To get the disc off the line, as you were calling for earlier. Booth going back to Scott. And now John trying to take the shot beyond the defender and in stride into the end zone to NS for the score. Yeah, too long between points there for SYC, but until you can start, earning those breaks back, you do have to put it in on offense, and at their second opportunity, they were able to get it done.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're still seeing exclusively horizontal. I think also that despite SYC's troubles in scoring in the last few points, they have run exactly the same play. They've sent 3 of their 4 horizontal cutters deep and slashed someone in towards the disc, and it has by and large worked. Bristol may want to actually change the way they're playing defense against that. They are obviously quite a comfortable position right now, but if the SYC D-line can get them back in the game, Bristol needs to have a response for a play that is currently gaining 6 offense most of half of the pitch in a single pass.
Now, I do believe that these teams have opted to use this weekend as part of their EUCS rankings.
Good. I like that.
Because we have the benefit of the wonderful ranking website now has a tab for this. So Bristol, Smog, Spice, SYC, and Yaka are using the games this weekend to count for the algorithm. So when those sides match up against each other, that does have a little extra bearing on the season as a whole as well. Going to delve into that a little bit later shortly.
We see a side stack and a zone. So 2 new additions to the game in the same point.
Just sneaking that one through to Hocking. Again, the change of defense probably benefits SYC shutting down that initial pool play. Hammer over the top to open up some space. Dish back off to Hocking, who's thriving since stepping up into this centre handling role.
Excellent throw.
Isolating Henry just outside the end zone. Galani's been given the unenviable task of matching up against Collins.
I'm very impressed with Bristol's composure and faking on disc. I think a lot of players, myself included, think that they're doing good faking, and when you watch yourself back in real time, it doesn't look like a convincing throw might come out of the hand. And the players there from Bristol that were touching the disc in the red zone set, they look like all of their fakes could become throws. And there's small nuances like that that make defense, especially in the end zone, extremely difficult.
Yeah, it's about more than just, okay, am I trying to sell the force one way or the other? You've got to have, you're partly using it to communicate to your cutters downfield that, that's a good space, but maybe the timing's a little bit off, or the defender's in a good position, so I'm not going to utilize it. But if there is a cutter in that space that you're faking to, it becomes more believable, I think, for the defenders both downfield and on the disc, if they kind of have a peek round that, okay, there is a player there and they are faking towards it, so I should probably at least respect it, and that does open up more space for you.
Yeah, that slight adjustment a defender makes when they think that could come is enough for these elite players on offense to get a sliver of a window and get free. Especially if you are convincingly faking to the break side, that moves the force and the defender guarding the downfield player.
It's an unenviable task being on the force against some of these throwers, because it's harder than ever, it feels, to stop those break throws going with kind of the arsenal of players at the elite level just keeps ever expanding. Paul must have landed just out of bounds.
The same play.
Isolating Childs into the centre. Break throw to space. The spacing's a little bit off, and
goodness gracious.
Somehow it ended in Lynch's hands. I'm not sure she's going to complain about precisely how.
I'm not even sure she was fully aware she'd caught it until she was faking.
But a case of right place, right time there for Lynch. Got it back in her hands now. Childs.
Ooh.
And then just looked away at the wrong moment there. Always got to have that eyes on the thrower, because Blackburn, I don't think, was expecting themselves to be free necessarily. Durban hitting the big underneath space there that Rodriguez created. And now on that far sideline with Mann.
Yeah, I think they would like to get 2 passes going in towards the middle of the pitch. That would really aid their flow. Okay.
Sri Ramesh looking for the shot.
Ooh,
Mann,
unfortunate.
2 hands on it, and would back themselves to make that catch, well, more than 9 times out of 10 in all honesty. But a little bit of a let-off there for SYC.
Yeah, I think the maybe the first time, or maybe the second time since the very first point that Bristol D-line had the disc. We've seen them sort of struggle with the tempo and feel actual pressure from the SYC defenders. They could really have benefited there from moving the disc further up to this high side.
A little slashing en passant cut there. Scott just inside her own half. Nice gainer to Enes. Finds Cockle, gets out of her hands quickly. Now a little bit of rhythm, maybe about 6 offense, but no sooner had the words escape my mouth that the throw is a little bit too far over, and seems like we've got an injury stoppage,
call.
which is never nice to see.
No, I hope she's okay.
You didn't precisely see what happened. But making the way off the field under her own power is always a good sign.
So Bristol get the benefit now of actually starting on the high side. Again, the wind isn't that strong, but it is enough to consider. And we'll see if they are going to aggressively keep it up in this half of the pitch, or end up back on that far sideline, semi-trapped again. Good throw.
You're getting the break off into the centre of the field. Now Man charging and churning up yards underneath and trying to release Durban, rushing through, but the throw just zipped away from her. Lynch will pick up on the far side. Binney will try and trap her there on the force. Bristol aggressively taking out the open side, but nice window found with the inside shot. John getting low towards the grounds to whip that underneath the mark and punching it into Childs for the score.
So the reason I went ooh there just a moment ago was because I really think the throw to Rupal should have gone when she arrived slightly higher up in the middle of the pitch. It was pump faked, and SYC did end up scoring on that far front cone, but I'm always a huge proponent of moving the disc into the middle of the pitch, especially if it's up breeze or upwind, and double especially if it is the break side and you're playing red zone. The sort of high break side can be more valuable than the open side in many cases. Nonetheless, they scored, but one to consider for their offense going forwards.
It's important, I think, that I'm trying to remember who saying this. I think maybe Thrash, which for the uninitiated at home,
Yes,
Dave Stobbs, long-time Clapham veteran, but he would watch things and kind of meticulously break it down. Okay, even if it worked, was it the right thing to do? Were we executing it properly? Did we get away with it? You know, did we bring it down because it was a good throw well executed, or just because we're throwing to some massive goons downfield? Could we have made that easier? Yes. Which, no offence to the Bullfrogs, but they've had some big old goons downfield for many years now.
Proud of our massive goons.
It's a key part of a lot of Elite Ultimate. Taking on the break throw to space for Oldfield, but a little bit over ambitious there, and Wilson will pick up off the turn.
I'm wondering if this is a slightly stacked D-line from SYC. Ooh, excellent bid.
Wedge comes up empty. Into the centre. Somehow escapes everyone and lands in Blackburn's hands. Blackburn goes back to Wilson. Looking for the break side space. Defender just sags off to prevent the first break to Galani, but they hit them through the middleman Wilson, who has it back in her hands now. Taking on the inside throw. Finds Livarski Bond.
Wow, excellent.
That was really good end zone offense from SYC.
Very good. The disc moved quickly from side to side. To especially highlight Rupal when she caught it on the far side, they looked for a goal scoring throw opportunity immediately and threw it straight back to Caitlin in the middle, who threw an inside break. I can't stress enough how important it is when you catch the disc in those sort of 5 to 8 meters from the sideline and end zone to scarcely look forwards. Get it back into the middle and let the person with more pitch to play with throw the break.
And they're taking advantage of the fact there that Andrews just kind of stepped off a couple of times on the force there, just to make sure that they're kind of gumming up that downfield movement.
Yeah.
And SYC taking the sensible options of, we'll just swing it to the open player, and then when you come in, we'll hit the space that you've since vacated. But good fundamentals there, I think.
Yes, interesting that the final throw, the assisting throw, was again an inside. I think the around was probably safer. I did notice that SYC drilled a lot of upline to an inside wrinkle throw in their warm-up pre-game, so maybe just a throw that their players are slightly more familiar with. Myself, I would have opted for the around into the full break side. But we are at 6-4, so we've got a real game going here.
Yeah, there was a danger at one point that maybe Bristol might blow SYC away, but to the Londoners' credit, they have, you know, established a bit of serenity about what they're doing now. There's a assuredness about their play, and they're certainly applying a little bit of pressure back to the balloons right now.
The balloons. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but do Caitlin and Rupal normally play SYC O-line?
That is a very good question.
I noticed them on D there, and I think that was a very nicely timed sort of semi-power line, if that's the case.
Yeah, I think you're right in that certainly they you see them play both ways, but
Yeah, of course. Both great players both ways.
and I think actually more and more now teams are kind of giving key players license to go out there and maybe bear a little bit more of the load. Side stack again to start for Bristol, clearing out the space for wedge underneath. Boyd into Tash Collins. Bristol getting a little bit bogged down. Defender overbid on the reset space. Boyd burns up line and then utilises the break side option to get Bristol back on the board. 7-4, one away from the half.
A critical point from Bristol there. You do not want to let it get to 6-5. The difference between 7-4 and 6-5 is massive mentally. It's still, I would say, actually quite a tight game. But Bristol will be feeling a lot calmer after that point. I really like the way Gemma played in that point. She's very fast, but she is also a very quick decision maker with her feet when she's cutting. She sees communicative fakes and makes a decision. She cuts break side if she's been going open, or she cuts deep if she's been going break side. She scored the goal in the end, but a lot of the sort of the grunt work she did in the middle of the pitch before that, not necessarily even touching the disc, was critical to her teammates getting free. So good to see her being rewarded with the goal, but it's easy to overlook just how useful a player like that is in the flow of the point, when all you notice is those who touch the disc.
It's interesting because over the course of a tournament, you do a little bit of stat line scouting. You know, you look at these are the players getting the bulk of the goals or the bulk of the assists, and it's tempting to think that the offense always runs through them, but it's not necessarily the case.
No. No, I'll never forget the 2018 EUCF final, where Robbie Haynes, playing for Clapham at the time, spent the entire final clearing and didn't touch the disc. But he was nonetheless one of our most critical players in that game.
Piper flashes in front of Bowlby there and makes her defensive presence felt once more.
Piper's having a great game. Very impressed with her energy.
I mean, she is a player who does bring lots of vibes and energy. Proud trash as well, by which I mean been playing for Euro Trash at the past 2-3 windmills maybe.
I see. Good grab.
Yeah, really forcing them tight to that sideline. Asking the question, but signal that she was in bounds. Down the line for Durban.
Another great grab.
Yeah, has to get low quickly. The reset spacing a little bit muddled, but Bristol worked their way out of it. And now they're taking the shot that is pumped downfield. Durban lays out and just couldn't quite close those fingers. You have a look at it again on the replay. Leading out to space, and they're trying to snag it with the trailing edge, and it just wouldn't quite sit in there.
No, the dastardly tape getting in the way.
Bristol will get a second shot at it, though, off the turn. Durban again, breaking a little bit behind. You can see LaRoque just stick the high hand out, but would not sit in there. SYC trying to get the offense moving again. It's their turn to look deep. They've got Wells up against Piper, and Piper applies enough pressure.
More great defensive energy from Piper. She's covered an enormous number of yards at this point, and I anticipate her covering quite a few more.
Taking that aggressive line to the disc and forcing Wells a little bit too far underneath it.
It was a very good-looking throw, but I think the way the breeze is playing across the pitch from the right to left from SYC's perspective just held it up slightly too much. Great D.
Yeah, what a way to get it back. The layout from Ilona Levarsky-Bond. Melville's going to take her time in striding over, make sure everyone can get fully set up. Isolation on Blackburn just outside the end zone. But she clears through. Miscommunication as the reset. Tip to second effort is then no.
This could go.
Piper agrees with you. The Edge is going to take it towards the far sideline. And it felt like it did have to go.
It really did. You can't be mad at her for taking it on. She can maybe be mad at herself for the execution, but it was a no-brainer option, I think.
At the very least, I'd have done it. Both sides trading deep looks now. Wells tracks that one. Bowlby to Blackburn. Swinging to Melville's Blackburn again. Trying to power the SYC offense here. Levarsky-Bond. Going the more patient route,
wow.
But the break side swing emphatically denied. A huge slap on that one. Van Niter, I think it was, who authoritatively said, "Not in my house." Here's LaRoque. Putting some air underneath it. Leading pass for Mudd, who's now going to shoot it herself.
Stunning throw.
Right down the mal. Opens up the centre of the field, rips it into space, and that's Bristol going into half with an 8-4 lead. You loved that one.
That was an excellent throw. It came off the back of a throw that I think is an interesting one that you don't really see outside of the women's division, which is quite a sort of a shapely leading throw into space on the break side. I think that is an option that a lot of high-level women's teams utilize very well and is almost a marker of a high-level player on disc and a high-level offense. And it really set up the lady that threw the assist.
Yeah, Mudd did not hang about with that one. Looked downfield, saw the window and thought, thank you very much. I'm just going to drive it down the fairway and bang on the money for the score. Bristol currently 8-4 leading SYC. Half-time here. Women's division action at the London Invite.
Always on the move? You can keep up to date with ULTI.TV on all of our social media channels. Like, follow, subscribe, share us with a friend, or send us a message just to say hey. Thank you for supporting us in our mission to grow Ultimate everywhere.
We are Hive Ultimate, a group of players and coaches from all over the world working together to progress the next generation of Ultimate strategy. We've helped top teams win world championships and new teams introduce the sport in a fun and inclusive way. Search for Hive Ultimate on YouTube to learn more about our cutting-edge strategies and to see analysis of world-class teams. To find out what Hive can do for your team, head over to our Patreon page where you can gain access to our exclusive drills and session plans and to join our worldwide community of coaches. Get ahead of the curve with Hive Ultimate.
Help us go electric, become a member.
Second half just about to get underway here at London Invite 2024, third edition of this event, live from the Grasshoppers Real Frisbee Club. That's what that stands for, right? Sure, we'll
Yes.
go with it. Benji Reese alongside
Indubitably.
Josh Briggs. You see there the resplendent clubhouse, London Invite flag outside. I'm sure as the day draws on, kind of more and more spectators will filter through, and yeah, hopefully it'll be worth the bar staff's while, I imagine. Bristol sitting pretty at the moment with the 8-4 half-time advantage and receiving to begin the second stanza of this game as well. Clear plan from SYC again is they want to shut down any initial pool plays that Bristol might have schemed up, which makes a lot of sense to me. So far though, Bristol seeming unflustered. Another leader down the sideline. Boyd taking the shots. Kantorovic just bides her time, as she always tends to do, and more often than not, as soon as you see her, it's too late, and it's 9-4.
Another glorious throw in the same direction for Bristol. I did think they were ever so slightly in danger there earlier in the point of abandoning their handlers, but they kept it on the high side, and they utilized again a leading edge, sort of nicely weighted throw into the break space for someone to throw a huck. So impressive disc skills, I would say, and composure, but maybe towing the line in terms of the number of players you want on the disc back behind a zone, especially as the wind picks up again. The weather really is all over the place.
Yeah, it's been variable, to say the least, but Boyd taking those shots, I mean, that was part of the Irish side that took home European gold in the unforgettable week at nearly 5 years ago now. Blimey.
Is that how you say it? Jur?
I think it's Jur.
Interesting.
I don't know. Hungarian's one of the languages that I've probably never got my chops around, to be honest.
My Hungarian's not the best.
It's not great. To be fair, it's about as good as the weekend as that week went for a lot of players. It was certainly an unforgettable experience, for better or worse, I'll put it that way. Melville into the centre. Now the rain is coming down, so I'm very glad that we brought the gazebo over before the game. I say we, by which I mean the London Invite staff and volunteers. Thanks very much, chaps. Wilson getting aggressive into the end zone. Oh, a couple of receivers there, and then yes, no, maybe, I don't know.
No, mine, or yours, yours, yours. I think that can be the difference.
And agonisingly for Golding, it just would not stay in her grasp. So Bristol's D-line offense, which has been very impressive in this game. Getting stuck into a bit of a jam early and just about getting away with it. Not quite how they drew that one up, but they got it away, so they're not sure they'll quite mind too much. And now big gainer downfield. Taylor taking the reset back to man. Saw a signal on the sideline for a pick, and then people just carried on. Man, squeezing it down the open side, an adjustment made, and it looked like she's never maybe quite had herself in a position to bid for it.
Bristol are very strong at using the break side, but I think they are maybe ever so slightly rushing on the open side when they see the opportunity to throw a goal.
Jumbo jet roars in overhead. We are not too far from Heathrow. It's just a few stops down the Piccadilly line, although when you get to the end of the Piccadilly line, those stops take ever longer. I must admit, it feels a little bit dirty to be in southwest London. Back in my day, London, where I lived, I say back in my day, where my end still doesn't have the tube. Thanks very much for that, TFL. Appreciate it.
It might be coming in 2065.
Oh, steady on. We were supposed to be getting the DLR as well. That never really happened. Anyway, I'm distracted. Sick there, shooting down the wrong line. Comes down the Bakerloo line, and the disc goes down the Victoria. And now Sri Ramesh picks up. And a little shake and bake for the score. Yeah, I think players, maybe now the turf's beginning to get a little bit slicker with the rain. That footwork gets all the more important.
This is quite a slick turf. It's also quite a sharp turf. If you end up making a bid or having to lay out, it can tear you up a bit. But we did have a few slips yesterday, and from previous years, if I recall correctly.
It's interesting because I always think about rugby being played on, well, I think grass might even be a bit optimistic. I expect, rugby surfaces to be kind of heavy, muddy ground, but more and more it's artificial turf, which feels a little bit odd to me.
A bit
but
punishing. I can't really imagine playing rugby on this.
No.
I don't think I would survive a rugby game in full pads on the softest grass imaginable anyway, but...
No, I mean, as someone who unfortunately had to play some rugby at school, I can tell you that I would not. And everybody knows that I'm a short ass, right? That's not a surprise to people. But back when I were a lad, I was, thin as well, so it was barely, I was like a twig. I could snap in a stiff breeze.
Okay, I was wondering if we were going to start seeing this. We're starting to see pullers take the disc in on the high side, and we're having much more success with the pulls recently landing in, being harder to field.
Excellent roll stopping there, though, from Garnier. Full commitment, full body behind it.
Lovely throw.
Just seeing that soft spot, blading it into space. Lynch downfield. Blackburn with plenty of room. Can she squeeze the gap? And does, bisects the defenders.
So we see a bit more success from Sick there, working on the break side. Again, the break high side. The breeze, though it has dropped, is still a factor. And at the very end of the play, we see the benefit in attacking after your throw, particularly when the full end zone has not been set up. So throwing a little break throw, admittedly into quite close coverage, but it was successful, and then charging up towards the end zone for a sort of a dishy German reset type throw for a goal. Staying away from that far side of the pitch where we've seen both teams get a little bit stuck or fail to reset early in the store as I think is best, and staying up here and really scoring without too much trouble. A lot of it came from that nice loopy throw at the start to get the disc into the middle of the pitch.
tough task now facing SYC of turning Bristol's O-line, which has been tricky for them. Haven't turned it over 3 times all game.
Only 3 times, well, that is exceptionally clean. Really for any conditions in any game. So they should be very happy with that.
Yeah, the D-line's, has not been quite as... they've not hit on quite as high a percentage, which,
No.
I think you'd expect necessarily from a D-line, but I must say I still have been impressed with Bristol's offensive output, both coming out on offense and picking up after the turn as well, as Boyd continuing to chance her arm, shooting deep, and a frozen rope to the end zone for the score. I mean, hey, when Boyd's dealing it like this,
Yeah.
I think you give her the green light and just let her go.
She's having a great game. Throws in both directions on the money. 70 yards, 40 yards, backhands, forehands. Something that is nice as a thrower is when your cutters recognize that you are really hitting the targets nicely, and they start sort of cutting deep with a lot of joy. They're really enthusiastic to set you up with the opportunity to throw it to them. That makes it all the easier to send out those nice long throws. It's a big factor in the decision making on disc in that snap moment when you've got that window to throw it.
Yeah, it feels like a good reward when your teammates realise, oh yeah, this is on.
Yeah.
We back you the whole way, and it opens up the field for other players as well. And for Boyd, that wasn't necessarily some of the other hucks we've seen where it's attacking, going downfield, and you're in a power position and you've got that forward momentum generated.
Indeed, yeah.
That one was from a standstill, but with the force slightly off, that was all the invitation Boyd needed.
Yeah, quite an all-round demonstration of throwing power this game. More horizontal.
Yeah, Booth fielded the pool on the full. And now Childs dishing back to Booth. Slap bang on halfway. Let's get it beyond midfield. Keen to shut off that dump space, and it opens up the inside across. This one popped up, floated. There might be a rescue attempt, and Cockle did well to recognise and try and slide in there, even if it wouldn't go to hand. Sri Ramesh. Still count going to be rising now, and that is very much a let's turn it over down the other end of the field.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of indecision. Turning round to see 2 reset options, both of whom pointed maybe at each other or at someone cutting from downfield. Just a little bit of messiness in terms of the backfield there.
Yeah, it definitely felt like it lacked clarity. Taking advantage of the poach to swing it wide to this near side. Lynch somehow sneaks through the post box of Booth. Van Eiter to Man. Creating some lateral space now with Payne. The 6 defense clamps down a little bit.
Yeah, sending Bristol back to where they started.
Van Eiter puts some air underneath it to create a little bit of space. Van Eiter has it back in her hands again. Inside off the hand. Did she get the second attempt? No.
No, not quite.
Rona Binney almost kicked it up into her own clutches, but couldn't. Shot, space created.
Tremendous throw.
Well tracked, and Cockle just has to measure herself, and sometimes those catches are so much trickier than they appear when you've got all the time in the world and you know that there's no way you should be dropping it, and sometimes you can psych yourself out a little bit. But Cockle was composed on the catch.
Very impressed with her point overall. almost got our hands to that layout grab a couple possessions earlier. Churned up a lot of yards deep when I think, particularly in that last possession, quite a lot of the SYC offensive players were there or thereabouts parallel with the disc. This happens when the points drag on, when there are multiple turns. And the game can boil down to who has the most players doing the hardest work downfield. We do need an excellent throw to reward that deep cutting as we got there, but yeah, a huge amount of effort put into the point there by
Cockle.
By Cockle, yeah. And seeing it come good in the end.
Teams warming up for our next game rounds going on behind us towards the side. On the streaming pitch, we have GB Open taking on Canada Masters, and given how GB Open took down Canada Open yesterday evening, they would be red hot favourites for that one. Oldfield, letting one out into space, a little bit of sit on it. Henry charges onto the end. Boyd to Andrews. Andrews set up the isolation in the centre, and that is easy money for a player of Oldfield's quality.
A very professional point all round from Bristol. I noticed that there was a slight change in their side stack this time. The first time they ran side stack, and possibly also the second, they sent out a stack up one side of the pitch and then a series of players slashing into the large open space, whereas this time they started with Nat in isolation by herself. So she was able to make a sort of two-direction move, take what her defender was giving her, and this was very early in the stall because she was already out in the lane. So a slight adjustment, but one that makes the defense coming down have to make a decision. The more decisions the defense has to make, the better, because the O does have control at the end of the day. You get to decide where you're going to go, and the defender has to guard you. A lovely around flick leading throw to Gemma, who's having an excellent game, both on disc and in terms of cutting. So yeah, super professional from Bristol, looking pretty smooth, I would say. I think they're probably thinking they keep the energy high and sort of cruise home now.
Yeah, I have been very impressed with Bristol in this contest.
A split stack.
And something a little bit different from SYC, just to try and get the offense moving off the ball. Fielder down the sideline. Wow. Piper in good body position again to swat it down. Although even if she hadn't got a hand to it, I think she'd already closed that window. Blading the backhand off the line to Durban. Now Van Eiter. Working well with Durban again. Durban now taking the shot.
Good read.
Yeah, man, had eyes on it early. It meant that she was able to come back towards it. Van Eiter now shooting.
Excellent grab.
And Mariana Larocque continues to compound the advantage. 13-6. Bristol now more than doubling up their opponents. And the deep shot there from Durban to Man. You went up and I thought this is a little bit undercooked, but Man had that eye contact and knew that, you know, more than happy to accelerate back towards the disc and undercut the deep defender, and then putting this out into space and plucked down with aplomb by Larocque for the score.
Yeah. I would say that's the benefit of having executed a very good deep cut. The throw was certainly poorly executed, but because Cutter had taken off with speed in an isolated scenario, she was best placed to read the fact that it was not going to reach her in the end zone. So certainly some luck there on Bristol's half, but also taking advantage of the good situations you put yourself in.
SYC in trouble as Bristol look to close this game out. They've got a 13-6 advantage here at the London Invite. Just under an hour on the clock here at London Invite. First action of this Saturday morning. Women's Division, an all-UK affair. Bristol leading SYC 13-6. Games are 70 minutes in 80-minute slots. And it's almost like that windmill-style cap where when you finish the point after the hooter, if you're not level or within one, that is the last point of the game, just to make sure that we don't have any particular overruns, although Bristol will back themselves to try and finish it before the timer here anyway.
Certainly think so. I'm intrigued to see what happens with this offensive point. I feel like for the entirety of the game, we have had variations on a theme from the SYC O-line. Mostly horizontal, sending 3 deep, slashing 1 across. We've had a couple times when they've, particularly in that last point where they came out in the split stack, it ended up being sending 3 deep, albeit with a larger space in the middle and 1 slashing. They've had no problem getting the disc forwards to that middle person. The issues seem to come later down the line, so difficult to diagnose, but their coaches on the sideline, hands on hips, looking pensive, so maybe we're going to see something slightly different, maybe a vert.
Durban with the pull, which has the edge. Take it onto that hill on the far side. And Lavarsky Bond's just going to have to weave her way through the fence to get it back to the balls to Brickmark.
Okay, this is slightly different. It's a very deep 3 and Rupal in isolation in the middle of the pitch.
Yeah, this is what I would have called German style offense, where you get the one player isolated in the centre, and Garnier didn't get the first cut and now clears it out deep. Lavarsky Bond spearing that one into Golding. Golding tried to thread the needle, but the Bristol defence closed. They've got this open swing if they want it, and they do take it. Leader to Boyd. Rising throw that Wedge handles, and Wedge shooting and blading immaculately into the end zone for Valle Rodriguez to score 14-6, 1 away from the win now.
Dominant point from Molly. The block came from reading the SYC handler's eyes. They were looking to throw sort of a skinny break or a skinny forwards throw. Picked that off nicely, charged downfield, taking a defender with I would say probably about 3/4 the length of the central zone. So it was really quite a huge effort, setting herself up to catch it under and throw a nice little break lead pass for an assist.
Somewhat quietly, Valle Rodriguez has had a mightily impressive game. 3 goals, an assist and a block.
That is a huge game.
It's tidy. You take that. See it there on your screen as well. Got the logo on the left sleeve of I think that's the 2022 WUCC logo rather than the 2018 one. I can't remember because they were both.
They were the same.
Yep. In quote unquote Cincinnati.
We'll see Cincinnati again, no doubt, in 2 years.
I have heard rumblings of bids, which
bid rumbles
are not confirmed, but fingers crossed it will be maybe a little more glamorous or a little closer to home at least. Trying to shut down and scarcely space for the reset, but Lynch finds it. Now Fielder. Childs powering through underneath, but good recognition there.
Yes.
By Van Eiter.
Again,
saw exactly what they wanted and flashed across from the block.
Very heads-up defense from Bristol. This is for game.
Yeah, that ability to keep the head on a swivel paid dividends. Payne. pumping. And now Binney down the line to Oldfield. Gainer into space, in stride, into the end zone to Henry for the score and the 15-6 win. For Bristol, that is a big marker early on at this tournament.
Very impressed with Bristol. I think they've come to play. They're here to win. They are also very much looking to be in the driver's seat at Nationals. They impressed all round with their defensive pressure, both physical and heads up. Their throwing skill, both in terms of the little things we talked about at the start, the faking and the communicating, the break throws and the hucks. They just look like a solid unit from player 1 to player 26, whatever it may be.
Yeah, the O-line turned it over twice on 43 passes. So it's pretty...
That's world class.
That's pretty good going, and they can certainly, yeah, a huge confidence boost for them. For SYC, disappointing, given the way the scoreline when these two sides met at the spring tour. They'd have been somewhat disappointed that the game wasn't a little bit closer, but they've still got plenty of game action left this weekend to bounce back from. We're going to take a little bit of a breather. Our next game starts in about 15 minutes' time, going to the Open Division for the first time with GB Open taking on Canada Masters. Here are the game stats for you. Devastating performance from the Bristol O-line, and defensively, I mean, maybe you could say, okay, can we improve that conversion ratio? 5 from 22 is probably 9 from 22 is probably, it's not bad, but you want to be hitting on over half. But when you're generating yourself that many opportunities, you don't mind maybe if you're not quite as sharp with it, because you back yourself to get it again.
Yes, I think also there were maybe 2.5 points in there which sort of gobbled up a significant majority of those turns. There were plenty of points where Bristol's D-line were clean, efficient, ruthless, but if they analyse whatever it was, for my money it was not getting the disc off the low sideline into the middle early in the stall. If they sort of make that adjustment, then we can turn those 2-3 sort of slightly more stodgy points into similarly clean breaks, and really you're looking at a devastating scoreline. Yeah,
6 of those 12 points where they got breaks were converted on the first time of asking, and that, when you think about it, actually does look more favourable. So, final score here at our first action of the weekend in the women's division is Bristol 15, SYC 6. And London Invite continues in about 15 minutes' time with our first Open Division action of the weekend. Josh, you enjoyed yourself?
Absolutely, yeah. I can't wait to be back tomorrow with you, Benji.
Looking forward to it as well. From all of us here at the London Invite, we'll see you on the other side.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Milan. I mean, Ultimate.
ULTI.TV.
You had me at a la 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 I can see you trying, finding ways inside my head. Lost and out of focus, I can hear a word you say. 'Cause I don't care about your game.